What is up, Broncos fans? The Denver Broncos Show back here again to do another video. In this video, I'll be talking about and giving my opinion on the Broncos' decision to sign Gary Kubiak as the team's new head coach. I think it's a very solid hire by the Broncos. Kubiak is now the 15th head coach in this franchise's history. And again, like I said, I think it's a very solid hire. Kubiak is obviously a guy that has a lot of personal ties to the city, to this organization, was a former player here, and obviously has had a long relationship with John Elway, not only as a player and as a teammate of Elway's, but also as a coach, winning those 2 Super Bowls with him as an offensive coordinator. So a lot of familiarity here with bringing in Gary Kubiak. Now, Kubiak's deal is reportedly a 4-year contract with the Broncos, so you're kind of seeing that the Broncos are giving him about a 4-year window to get this thing going in the right direction. But nonetheless, looking at Gary Kubiak, obviously is 53 years old, is a guy that has prior head coaching experience, obviously spent 8 seasons as the Houston Texans head coach. During his 8 seasons with the Houston Texans, he compiled a record of 61 wins and 64 losses in the regular season. He had a winning percentage of 49%. That concerns you a little bit, but he also did lead the Texans to their first ever playoff appearance in franchise history. They went 2-2 in the playoffs under Gary Kubiak. He led them to 2 AFC South Division titles and had a lot of success offensively there in Houston. 4 times during those 8 seasons under Kubiak, the Texans offense finished top 10 not only in total yards offensively, but also top 10 in scoring offense. So you like that. Obviously, is a guy that had some pretty solid success there in Houston, has prior head coaching experience, so that's obviously a plus. Gives you a little more, I guess, comfortability with him being a head coach, that he already has prior experience and spent a pretty good decent amount of time with Houston. Again, 8 seasons there, brought them to their first playoff appearance in franchise history, brought some winning ways, winning culture to that franchise and relevance. You like that Kubiak did that. And after he spent his time in Houston last season, he obviously was the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and definitely brought some improvement to that offensive unit as well. Under Kubiak, the Ravens offense last season ranked 11th in total yards offensively and was 8th in scoring offense. So you like that. Again, as a guy that has a track record as a pretty good offensive mind, one of the better offensive minds in football, and again has had a lot of success in a few different places. Of course, you can't talk about Gary Kubiak without talking about his ties to the Denver Broncos franchise and, of course, his relationship with John Elway. This is a guy that knows the history of this franchise, the culture of this franchise. He knows how badly us fans want to see this organization win a 3rd Super Bowl championship. He obviously was part of those Super Bowl winning teams in 1997 and 1998 as the offensive coordinator, and he was again a former player for the Broncos in the 80s, early 90s, was John Elway's backup for 9 seasons. This is a guy that is one of us. He is a Denver Bronco at heart. Just like he said when he was first hired, he's back home and this is his dream job. He really wants to win and bring this organization back to the Super Bowl and back to the top where it belongs, and that's got to give you some comfort in this hiring of Kubiak as our head coach. You know he's going to be passionate about getting this organization back to the Super Bowl and competing for a world championship as soon as possible. And this is his home. This is the place where most of his football career has taken place. And again, he has a great relationship with John Elway. This is a guy that he's known for 30 years. He was Elway's backup for 9 seasons. He was Elway's offensive coordinator when he won those 2 Super Bowls in '97 and '98. And their familiarity with one another and their relationship and their closeness, definitely as a Broncos fan, gives me a little more comfort and confidence in this hiring of Kubiak as the head coach, because you know how badly both these guys want to bring a championship to Denver and to this franchise and to us fans, because they know how much this team means to this city, and they are one of us. They are, they got Denver's back, Gary Kubiak and John Elway. So that's why you got to love the fact that Kubiak is truly one of us and is a Denver Bronco at heart. And again, looking at just some of the past history that he's had with this organization. Obviously, again, spent 9 seasons with the Broncos as a quarterback, was John Elway's backup for those 9 seasons. He threw for 1,920 yards as a member of the Denver Broncos to go with 14 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and had a career completion percentage of 58%. And then, of course, after his playing days with the Broncos, he became the team's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach there in 1995. He spent 11 seasons here as the Broncos offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. Of course, won those 2 Super Bowls as the offensive coordinator of this team under Mike Shanahan with John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Ed McCaffrey, Rod Smith, Tom Allen, that legendary offensive units there in 1997 and 1998. So again, he knows how much a world championship would mean to this city, and how much it already, those 2 championships mean to this city. And again, he knows what it takes to obviously get to that level and not only win. Again, was the Broncos offensive coordinator for those 2 Super Bowl championship winning teams. And during his tenure, his 11 seasons here as the offensive coordinator for the Broncos, this offensive unit had a ton of success. 8 times during those 11 seasons under Kubiak, the Broncos offense finished top 5 in total yards. 4 times they finished top 5 in total points. 9 times they finished top 5 in rushing yards, and 7 times they finished top 5 in rushing touchdowns. So this is obviously a guy that knows how to run the ball successfully. Obviously, a lot of that success had to do with Terrell Davis, but a lot of it had to do with Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan's offensive system, and obviously Kubiak's offensive system, the zone blocking scheme, obviously is a system that's predicated a lot on the play-action passing game. You kind of want a downhill runner in that the offensive system as well, and you want kind of smaller, quicker, more athletic offensive linemen. You don't want those big maulers. And again, it had a lot of success here in Denver with that zone blocking scheme. He had 5 1,000-yard rushers in that 11 seasons that he was the Broncos offensive coordinator. Clinton Portis, Mike Anderson, Reuben Drones, of course, Terrell Davis, and Landis Gary all rushed for 1,000 yards under Gary Kubiak when he was their offensive coordinator. And 6 times during those 11 seasons under Kubiak, the Broncos offense finished top 10 in passing yards, and 7 times they finished top 10 in passing touchdowns. So obviously this is a guy that likes to run the ball a lot with his offensive system and his offensive philosophies. A lot of that success had a lot to do with John Elway, but still, again, it shows kind of Kubiak's versatility as a play caller. And those 2 playoff losses that he had as the head coach of the Texans were outscored 61-41 in those 2 games, whereas John Fox in his 4 playoff losses as the Broncos head coach, his teams were outscored 150-66 in those 4 losses in the postseason. So obviously, you like the fact that Kubiak's teams showed a little more fight and fire even in defeat in the playoffs. And again, that's the thing I like about Kubiak that I think kind of gives him an edge over John Fox, is not only is he a better offensive mind clearly than John Fox, but he already knows what it takes to win a Super Bowl, winning 2 Super Bowls with this organization. Again, in the late 90s as an offensive coordinator. He's a great play caller. He's a great motivator. He's obviously extremely passionate about winning here in Denver. Again, was a former player. He has all those ties to Denver that John Fox didn't have. And again, even though his teams lost in the playoff like John Fox's did, they showed some fire and didn't just get dominated like we saw the Broncos teams under Fox get dominated in the past 4 seasons in the playoffs. So all in all, I think Gary Kubiak's a great coach, and again, he's going to bring a lot of diversity, a lot of creativity, and I think a lot more production offensively for the Broncos, especially in the running game. C.J. Anderson, I think, is going to be phenomenal in his zone blocking scheme system, and I think our offensive line is also going to be a lot more athletic, a lot quicker, and a lot more improved next season under Gary Kubiak, again with his zone blocking scheme and his offensive system. And I know a lot of people, are a little bit worried about, well, what will our defense look like under Gary Kubiak? But this is a guy that even during his time as a head coach with the Texans still had some pretty solid defensive units. 3 times under Gary Kubiak, the Texans defense finished top 10 in total yards, and twice they finished top 10 in scoring defense. And again, this is a guy that's a fiery coach. He's a player's coach. He's a great motivator, and he's passionate about this franchise. He has so many ties to the city, so many ties to this organization, to Pat Bowlen, John Elway, former players. Again, has won 2 Super Bowls with this team as the offensive coordinator. You just love all that about Kubiak. So while I'm not over the moon with having Gary Kubiak as our coach, and definitely I think there's some cause for concern, I think he's a great hire. I think he's a great fit, more importantly, again, because his ties to this organization, because the type of offensive mind that he is, the amount of improvement that he's going to bring to our rushing offense, and again, the fact that he's more of a motivator and more fiery, so to say, more passionate about winning here in Denver than John Fox was. And again, his relationship with John Elway is second to none. So definitely happy to have Gary Kubiak on board here, and I look forward to seeing what he does as the Broncos head coach starting this season. And lastly, real quick, I want to also talk about a little bit of Broncos coaching news. We hired Rick Dennison as our new offensive coordinator. Obviously a guy that has been coaching alongside Kubiak for quite some time. And again, like Kubiak, is another guy that has ties to this organization and has ties to the city. Obviously spent 9 seasons as a linebacker for the Broncos during the 1980s. He played in 3 Super Bowls with the organization as a linebacker. He was part of those 2 Super Bowl championship teams in 1997 and 1998 as the team's special teams coach. He was an offensive line coach for the Broncos for 5 seasons, and he's already spent 3 seasons as the Broncos offensive coordinator from 2006 to 2008, and during that span, twice the Broncos finished top 10 in rushing yards, and 3 times during those 3 seasons, under Rick Dennison as the Broncos offensive coordinator, the Broncos offense finished top 10 in rushing yards per carry. So you like that. And he was also, again, is a guy that has a great relationship with Kubiak. He spent 4 seasons as the offensive coordinator under Kubiak for the Houston Texans, and during those 4 seasons from 2010 to 2013, twice the Texans finished top 10 in total yards. 3 times they finished top 10 in scoring offense. 3 times they finished top 10 in total rushing yards. 3 times they finished top 5 in rushing touchdowns, and twice they finished top 10 in rushing yards per carry. And he also coached alongside Gary Kubiak last year in Baltimore. He was a quarterback coach there for the Ravens last season. So you got to like Rick Dennison coming in as the team's new offensive coordinator. Again, you like him because, like Kubiak, he has the ties to this team. He was a former coach and player for this team. Again, a former linebacker. He's played in 3 Super Bowls as a player for the Broncos, won 2 Super Bowls, again, with the team as a special teams coach. And he's going to bring a lot of improvement to our offensive line, being a former offensive line coach for the Broncos. Again, he knows Gary Kubiak's kind of zone blocking scheme, and again, is a guy that likes to run the ball, has been an effective play caller in terms of running the ball. And I really think bringing in Kubiak and now Dennison, our rushing offense, and C.J. Anderson, next season, we're going to be a very good rushing team. Trust me, we're definitely going to trust in the run, and I think we're going to be a lot more effective running the ball under Kubiak than we were John Fox, and be a lot more balanced offensively under Dennison and Gary Kubiak. So that's my video, guys. Rambled on long enough. Leave me a comment below. What do you think of the Broncos hiring Gary Kubiak as the team's new coach and 15th head coach in the Denver Broncos franchise history? And also, what do you think about Rick Dennison coming back as the offensive coordinator for the Broncos? So thank you for watching, guys. Once again, congratulations to Gary Kubiak. Welcome back to Denver, Cougs, and good luck, man. Really looking forward to seeing what Kubiak can do with this team as the new head coach of the Denver Broncos.